Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of HigherHer. We are a podcast put on by Talent Collective. Talent Collective is a community for women in the recruiting space, and we're really excited to be here today. My name is Krista Tan. I'm one of the co-founders of Talent Collective and joined here by my other co-founder, Natalie. Say hello.
Hello, everyone.
All right. And our special guest here today is Victoria Castro. Victoria was referred to us, and she has a really great background in talent acquisition. She's been in the industry for over 8 years now. Currently, she's a recruiter at Robinhood. She's really passionate about bringing data and branding and candidate experience to the talent acquisition process. So on that note, we'd love to pass it over to Victoria to do more of an intro on herself.
Yeah, so like Krista said, I've been in the talent acquisition area for 8 years. Being in Oklahoma, I started in oil and gas, so that was a lot of fun. I got to fly all over the US, so very fun as no kids before that. And then I went over to Paycom, got into computer software. That's where I got my dabble in tech, really started learning, just a lot of what I have in my belt of, talking to hiring managers and making sure they're prepared, bringing in great candidate experience as well as data. And that led me to Robinhood. I really found after COVID that I wanted to be fully remote so that I could cut down on commute as well as spend more time with my family. So that's been a lot of fun. And I'll pass it back over to Krista.
Okay, awesome. Well, thanks for that intro. Would love to talk about some fun stories maybe that you have from your time in recruiting. Do you have any stories of like maybe a favorite candidate that you placed or a story, something like that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it happened very early in my career. So when I first started in oil and gas, we were going from the switch from, doing everything with papers versus now everything's online. So I had helped someone who knew little to no English. He had walked into our corporate office that day, was asking what, kind of jobs we had. He had worked for Brahms for 15 years. So we did everything in person from setting up his email account to his drug test to his background check. His son had came in at one point because he didn't even have an email address. So we had to set that up there. So that was really exciting. And each time, after we hired him that I saw him in the workplace, he would always greet me with the warmest hug and most grateful attitude. So that kind of happening early in my career is really what, made me love recruiting, getting to help people in their next step and really, get them in a new career.
Wow. And that person just literally like walked in that day. And then did you like interview him on the spot or like how did that all work?
Yeah, so I just brought my piece of paper down with a pen and I was like, these are all the questions I have. This is the place you're going to go to for the next step interviews. And then he came back and was like, I don't know where to go for my drug test. I don't know how to schedule my drug test. And I was like, well, first you need an email. So that's when he had brought his son in later to do that stuff.
Wow. Oh my gosh, I love that. I have a kind of story that you're reminding me of right now of back when we worked in an office in agency world. Natalie and I worked at an agency in downtown San Francisco. And I remember one day I had a candidate coming in that was referred by her sister, and her sister was awesome. So I was like, I'm pretty sure this gal is going to be awesome. And right before that, I got a call from Pandora, who's my client, and they were like, we need a front desk receptionist today. Like, please send someone over. And I was like, instead of calling a bunch of people and making this candidate wait, like, I think it could be her. Mm-hmm. And so I met with her. And then at the end, I was like, so do you want to go somewhere today? Go take the bar to Pandora and show up. And she ended up getting like a permanent job there as receptionist. And then she ended up like, moving up. And I forget exactly what division she went into. But it was one of those just memorable things that like, someone in your seat, that just shows up that day could be like the perfect person. So love that story.
Yeah, it was really awesome.
Thanks.
And remind me, did you say, how did he actually find out about the job?
He literally was driving down the road and just walked in, saw oil and gas. He had worked so Brahms is local to Oklahoma. There might be very few in Texas. So he had worked there for 15 years and really just wanted a change in his career. He was making right around 14 an hour. So oil and gas back then was really, just popping. So he really just needed, something better for his family.
Wow. Literally just show up to an office building.
Yeah.
Fashion job searching. Awesome. Thank you for that amazing story. So as part of our podcast sessions, we always love to get vulnerable with our guests. We find it very valuable to our audience to be able to share, challenging experiences, things that you've overcome in your career or your personal life. So if you're comfortable, do you have any story that you could share that maybe somebody in the audience would resonate with?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I first picked this question, it really hit me just because empathy has been something I've always had to learn, both personally and professionally. So I grew up with all men. So that wasn't something that just came, naturally. And now I have two daughters. So, that's my job to be the empathetic one. I'm like, okay, that's me. So learning to let empathy overflow in my being, like personally and at work, was a very hard challenge. So I remember a time at Paycom, this manager really rubbed me the wrong way. And my manager had reached out and just said, don't let it ruffle your feathers. Empathy is very important here. So I still take that situation with me today. I was able to sit down later with that manager and kind of talk through just, the process and how we should do things. So that was very impactful from, an empathy standpoint, as well as like hiring manager interactions, because that's not always easy to sit down and be like, I shouldn't have said that. So learning empathy has not only helped me become a better mother, wife, and person in my community, but just, also in, the TA community. So I'm less likely to say something I shouldn't now, which is a very good thing.
That reminds me of, are you familiar with Ken Blanchard and situational leadership? Okay, so the concept here is he talks about leadership styles, but not in the traditional sense of like, there's all these different kinds of styles. It's more about being a leader and catering to that person situationally. So right now, Krista might need something different, a leadership style differently than she might need a year from now, depending on what the task or the situation might be. And so as you were describing that, I was thinking like, you found the right place where your style and your skills really resonated with the right person, the right audience, the right environment. So it's just, one thing to remember, never deter from being yourself.
Yeah. Very good lesson.
It was also making me think about, so we also ask some guests.
Get ready to turn up the volume on your HR game. I'm Jay Arnold, former musician turned HR leader and host of Backstage Pass, the HR Rockstar. Each episode pulls back the curtain on key HR topics, from leadership lessons and bold career pivots to the latest in HR tech and talent strategies, featuring the rock stars within their industries. If you're ready to shake up the status quo and amplify your impact, this is your all-access pass. You can catch the show on the Work Defined Podcast Network and wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe now and let's rock the future of work together.
Like, what is the number one skill that they think leadership skill that women bring to the table? Almost every single person has answered high emotional intelligence, which I think empathy is a part of that. That women tend to have a little bit higher of an EQ, and more empathy. And that's really, where women tend to shine. Interesting that you said you were brought up basically around all men and you kind of had to like learn that, right? Like, yeah. Oh, wait, that's my role. Like, I have to do that.
Yeah. Well, it's like, what's empathy?
Yeah, right. Exactly. That must have been such an easy, like straightforward way to live your life up until then, right?
Yeah, and I think that's probably some of the reason that God gave me two girls, is like learning to be like that empathetic parent and be like, okay, this is my part where I'm supposed to, come in and show those characteristics.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, let's pivot a little. We'll still stay on the recruiting topic and would love to hear from you. We love to talk about like controversial trends and maybe some hot topics that people feel really polarized about one way or another within TA. What's a controversial trend or something that you think we should be talking about more, and what's your take on it?
Yeah, so this one hits me really hard, and I think it hits in all aspects of life, but especially just the TA community as recruiters. I think it really baffles me that as recruiters, we ghost people. Like we just don't respond. So personally, one of my biggest pet peeves is leaving me on red when something warrants a response, or just kind of leaving it out in the open. So personally, I try my best to give all my candidates a great experience, something I'm very passionate about. So, no update message is better than no message at all. So I always think, let's say I reach out to them every Friday, what if they have a question and I didn't reach out, and then I could lose them in the process because they don't feel comfortable, joining, where I'm at. So also between, them signing an offer and their start date, there's quite a bit of time. So, just following up with them to see, how everything's going, if there's relocation involved, seeing, if they have questions there. I also firmly believe that candidates deserve feedback, or to at least know they didn't get the position, just not to be ghosted after an interview process, or, even the application process. Like I said, like if a simple email is better than no email.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nice. So true. Okay, next question. This is kind of a funny one. This is a new one for us. Can you share a hilarious or unexpected moment that you experienced during an interview, maybe yourself as a candidate or as a recruiter with a candidate?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to share an interview process that I went through. So when I was making the transition out of oil and gas, because our company had got bought out by a Houston company. So I was a lone recruiter in Oklahoma City. So I decided it was time to make a move. I had a 4-month-old at the time. So I had went into this interview. It was very casual. I was sitting there at a table with the director of TA, as well as, the manager that I had, or that was going to be my manager. And she had asked me something like, what do your mornings look like? Or how does your day go? And I was like, well, I have a 4-month-old, so it's pretty chaotic. And then I had just sat there and I was like, wow, did I really just say that? But thankfully they didn't think anything of it. And months later, after being hired, I would joke about how they hired me after mentioning that I had a newborn at home. And I think some companies wouldn't have responded as well as they did. And I'm very thankful for that, because Paycom, really gave me a lot of great experience and where I am today. I just thought it was really funny just, mentioning that, because especially with all the things you see on LinkedIn of people, saying they were pregnant and they got fired or they didn't get hired. And so it was just a really, good moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was great. One last impromptu question. We blew through our conversation here.
We did.
Pointed, short to the point. Fast, straight to the point. What would you like to see for the future of recruiting, or for yourself in the future of your career as a practitioner?
Yeah, I think I was just talking about this months ago. I think I would definitely personally love to stay in the individual contributor space. I think there's a lot that I still want to, contribute and that TA can do. I think especially with all of this AI, stuff coming out, I think there's still a human aspect to recruiting that should be done. So I'm hoping, I don't personally think that AI is going to take over recruiting, because we need that human aspect.
Mm-hmm. This is William Tincup. And I'd like to talk to you a little bit about Indeed FutureWorks. Ryan and I attended the conference last year, and we created a limited series for Indeed where we talked to their customers. Great stories around TA and how they use Indeed to the max. So check it out. It's just Indeed FutureWorks 2024. You could search for it wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks.
So great. We love hearing the positive spin on that. We actually have a couple sessions that we're going to be talking about at our upcoming summit on that. So trying to help, ease a lot of recruiters into that same rationale. Well, thank you for joining us. Is there anything else you would like to share with the audience, or with us about you and your recruiting journey before we
I don't think so. I just really appreciate Natalie and Krista for asking me to be on here. This is the first time. So it's been really cool.
Yeah, thank you again for joining us. And for those tuning in, thank you so much for joining us this week. Until next time, feel free to like, share, subscribe. I'm not a YouTuber, so I don't know all the jargon and language. But do all the things that you're supposed to do to follow us. And you can find the video version on YouTube and then the podcast on all the major podcast streaming channels. But until next week, have a great rest of your week.
Thanks, Victoria.
Thank you.